Okay, so this video I'm going to make the first video in the series for people who haven't used Photoshop at all, and for people who are thinking about maybe getting into doing some digital painting. If you are familiar with Photoshop, you're going to want to skip this video and move on to video number 2. There's not going to be anything here that you don't know. So this is not a general tutorial either on Photoshop. I'm only going to explain the tools that I use, and I'm only going to explain a few tools. So yeah, this is just for those who are kind of brand new to Photoshop, like you got it out of the box and you're wondering where to start. So to me, the first thing you're going to want to start with, and you know, settings are going to be different for everybody. So I might have some settings that you don't have, and certain things may not be exactly the same, but this is generally going to work, I think. You're going to want to go here to File, and then New, and that'll bring up this dialog box right here. And we're going to first deal with the size. A lot of people's machines or software might be set to pixels. It'll be easier for you to understand if you change that to inches. I'm going to make a document that is 8 inches wide and 10 inches high. I have my resolution set to 200 dpi. That will give me enough resolution so that if I want to print from this document, I can just size it up to 300 and it'll look great. I found that works. Some people like to paint at 300 dpi. I don't think it's necessary. But you definitely want to paint higher than 72 dpi, which is screen resolution. Some of you, your machines might be set to grayscale. You'll want to put that on RGB color. Grayscale won't let you paint in color. CMYK color, that's the printing colors, the cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And printers will convert your RGB file to CMYK. And you may lose a little bit in the blues and the teal area, but your screen is RGB, so you're going to want to paint in RGB. Okay, and I have my background color set to white. I'm going to click OK, and there's my canvas that I'm going to paint on. Okay. Now some of you also may be wanting to paint on your own sketch, so I'm going to go get a sketch real quick, and we'll just move that over. Let's see, let me find out where I'm going to go. Right in this folder here. I should have had this out already. And I'm going to just, this is a JPEG image. I'm just clicking it and dragging into Photoshop. I'm still holding down the mouse button when I release. There's my sketch. And this is a little coloring sheet I did for a library presentation one time. So we'll use that later. We're back to our original canvas here. And so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to tell you that I don't like this background layer. And you're going to do best, I think, is if you think about Photoshop with the analogy that I was given that really helped me get, my brain around it. And that was that you're painting on layers and layers of glass. Okay? But the background layer right here is like a piece of illustration board or a piece of watercolor paper. It's white and it's different than all the other layers, and I don't like that because it has different rules. You can't move it to the top of the stack of layers. So I like to change it into what I call a glass layer. You're not really painting on glass. You know, you can have texture, you can have, you know, a white background and stuff, even when you're painting on the glass layers that I like to call them glass layers. But I like to make this layer just like all the others. So I'm going to double click it. Okay, that brings up this dialog box. It automatically defaults in calling it layer 0. I'm fine with that. I'm just going to click OK. And now this is going to be just like any other layer. Okay. At this point, you should probably go in and save your document, you know, so in case the power goes out or something happens. So we'll do a little save as, and we'll save it up to the desktop. We'll call it tutorial can spell. And now we've got it saved. Okay, so the first tool, let's just work with the paintbrush. This is the paintbrush tool right here. When you click on that, it gives you a paintbrush, and you'll notice that it changes everything up here. So if I was over here on this ellipse tool, now everything up here is all these are settings for the ellipse tool. If I click on the brush, they'll all change, and now these are all settings for the brush tool. So these are things we have to work with. We also have a brush palette to work with. So if we come down here and click on brushes, I already had that brush palette out. It's over off to the side here. That'll bring our brush palette. So these are also tools that we have to use with this brush. Okay. So one thing that we can do is we can get a brush tip shape. I always choose a circular brush. And real quick, I'm just going to tell you that I use the brackets next to the letter P. P as in Paul on the keyboard. So bracket one way will make it a smaller brush, bracket the other way will make it a larger brush. And if I keep clicking there, you can hear me clicking, and I'm just clicking that brush up and down, and that'll give me the size. If I click and drag with my mouse, I can get some paint to come out of it. This opacity up here and the flow controls how much paint's coming out. So this flow is how much paint, and the opacity is the coverage on how dense it is, and is it covering. So with the flow up now, it'll actually cover, and it won't leave this little pattern area because it's flowing more. Okay, and if I hit the shift button and those same brackets up and down, the left bracket will soften that brush, and you can see that right over here. So when I shift bracket up, there's actually a slider also here for the hardness and softness, but that'll slow you down a lot. It's better to learn the key commands: shift bracket up, bracket down, okay, on the hardness and smoothness. And then again, bracket up and down with no shift will give you the size, and then here's all your paint right there. Oops, I did that a little too quick. We're going to change the color. This is a foreground color, this is a background color. If you click on the foreground color, it'll bring up this little box here, and you can choose your colors out of here. I like to use this color picker. I don't like the you can also get another color picker. There's a million ways to do things in Photoshop, so it's best to find one that works for you, and then be open-minded to maybe change to a different one later. But if you get this color box here, and there's somebody that thinks they want to talk to me right now, and I don't want to talk to them because I'm making a video, so we'll let that go to voicemail. Should have unplugged it. That's making me think that I've got my cell phone going too. Should probably unplug that. Some people can pick color out of this one. I'm just clicking with this little dropper here. I don't like to do it that way. My capture software won't let me get rid of any of these boxes, so I'm just going to move them off to the side. And so we're going to use this color picker right here. This little slider right here will change the colors. Okay, and then just simply clicking anywhere in here will get a different color. You can see it changing right here. You get one you like, you click OK, and when I click OK, watch over here, there's the new color right there. So now I can paint with that color. I can bracket up. Okay, this is what I'm primarily using. I'm not going to explain the texture here because I'm going to explain that in the next video, how I use texture. Okay, so if I want to put a nice little cool blue color on top of that, I can. So there's some paint coming out. Remember, to the hardness of the brush, we bracket, shift bracket. Okay. Now, so that's the brush tool, pretty much. There are plenty of other brush shapes. You can make your own brush shapes. Here's some other shapes of brushes. I just use a round brush, so I don't use any of these. And So, you know, you can get all kinds of different effects and stuff. You know, there's a sponge. You can make shapes of colors. You can make leaf. There's a leaf shape, you know, and you can design your own brushes. I don't do any of that. I just use a circle brush. Okay? So that's the brush tool in the 101 version of the brush tool. I often use this lasso tool. This is you can make selections. So if you click and drag with this tool, you can select an area. Then if you come over and grab the move tool, I use this one a lot, mostly in the drawing stage. I don't use this in the painting stage that much, but there I have checked. Now, one of the reasons why I say this is like you're painting on glass is because I've just removed this little piece right here. If I want, I can undo it. I can come up here to edit and undo move, put it back there. I can also hit Control Z, or I can step backwards a bunch of times with Control Alt Z. So that's kind of an undo. I use undo quite a bit. Here's another selection tool. You can get a rectangle and you can select areas. We can grab the move tool and move those. You can select an area to paint in an area. So let's say I select this area right here, and I would like to, I'm going to get some black here, so I'm just clicking right here. This will toggle the foreground color to white and black. But if I'm going to actually go get a regular circle brush again. Just click right there. Again, the brushes are found, I can't delete this because of my software, but that's where you would get that box right there. Is under Window, and then Brushes. Okay, so now I have a circle brush. If I paint, you know, I'm trying to paint this whole area and it's only painting inside there, I use that tool. You can also select Inverse, and now everything but that area is selected, so you can paint around that. If you're at all familiar with painting and airbrushing, this is like using Friskets. It's quite handy to be able to do that, you know. Okay, so doing a little painting there. So I use the lasso to select, I use the marquee to select, I use the move tool to move things. We're not going to talk about the magic wand. The crop tool, I use that one mostly towards the end of a painting, you know, where you can crop it. I'm right clicking now and just selecting crop. Undo that, so you can crop any area, and then that ends up changing the whole image, the whole canvas size. I'm not going to talk about the band-aid or the rubber stamp. I use the eraser, erase tool. When you see this checkerboard pattern through there, that's like seeing into outer space. So you know you're wiping off what's on the glass and you're seeing out into outer space. There's nothing underneath your painting at that point. Okay, I just hit undo again. The eraser, you can change the opacity and the flow. Remember, every tool that you see along here, when you click on it, there are controls for that right at the top. So that's very handy to remember. You can upsize and downsize your eraser, which is very helpful. You can make a selection and only erase inside that area. That's also very helpful. Okay, so I'm going to undo those. I'm going to put that paint back there. I'm hitting Control Alt Z, and I'm stepping backwards in time from the things that I just did. Okay, so that's the eraser. I have no idea how to use this blur tool. Sounds like it blurs things, right? Probably does. I use that. I don't use the pass selection tool. That deals with more of the vector side of the program, and the pen tool. I don't use that. Don't use the notes. The hand tool, actually, when you're zoomed in, that's very helpful, and I use that quite a bit. You can click and drag and move around your painting. But the easier way to get it, rather than going over here, is just space bar. Click space bar, and this is when you're on any tool, so it's very handy. You could be on a brush, click space bar, you got the hand. That's probably the first key command I learned, and probably the most handy, because when you're working on a painting and you want to zoom in, I grab the zoom tool and I'll show you that one in a second. But if you're working on a detail section, right now I'm just holding spacebar down and clicking and dragging, and I can move to a part of my painting, and then I could get a brush and just, you know, work details down on this area, you know, if I'm, you know, doing little painting and stuff. And then if I want to move to another part of my painting and work some of those same details, I could without having to zoom out. So next to the hand, the zoom tool. Okay, zoom tool, you can toggle in and out up here. They put a little button so you can, there's a minus sign in there now, and you can zoom it in and out. But again, it's easier to hit the key command Alt, and that just gives you a minus sign, so you can zoom out real quick. It defaults to a plus sign, so it's always on a plus sign when you grab it. But you hit Alt, and these will come over time. You know, just what I do is I try to learn one key command at a time. It's like, don't overload me. So, you know, you can the cool thing is you got these videos now, you can refer back to these and you know, watch it again and go through it again, and now you can, you know, I'm clicking Alt, hitting Alt for that to toggle to. There's also, you can go on Google and get a whole list of all the key commands. Just type in Adobe Photoshop, the version you're using. I'm using CS2 right here. You can click on, you know, type in Adobe Photoshop CS2, quick command, key commands or shortcut commands, and someone will put a whole list out there, and you can just grab them and go through and find tons that I'm not even using. I use the eyedropper. That basically allows me, look over right here in this little, on the foreground color, and wherever you click, you can grab that color. So you can actually get color from your painting and paint with that without having to go back to the picker to get color. So let's say you have a paintbrush and you're painting along, right? And you've got this maroon color that you're painting with. Let's say you want some orange color to start painting with. Well, you can go back to the picker and try to find some orange, or you can come right here on your painting because you're trying to help your color harmony, and you can click Alt, and boom, you've already got the eyedropper. See, they knew this going in, that it was going to help artists to be able to, you know, grab some of their own color to help their color harmony. So I use that a lot. Okay. Just kind of working our way around. We got the zoom tool, the eyedropper tool. I do not use the rectangular tool. I do use the text tool sometimes, but we're talking about paintings here, so I'm not going to get into that. But that's a good tool to use if you're doing a little graphic design or something and you want to put some text over top of it. Pretty standard text tool. And again, all the, you know, there's also under window, there is a whole palette for all these things. So the character palette, all this stuff deals with text. So you got your kerning and your leading, you've got your fonts and your point sizes, and you know, all that stuff, and the styles and different things. Of course, this won't click out, so I'm going to move that over. Moving along, the dodge tool, I don't use that. I rarely use the paint bucket tool. And we're back to the brush again. I don't use the slice tool again. That works with the vector side of the program. Some really cool stuff that you can do with those. I just don't use them with my paintings. Now, one other thing is, under most of these tools, there are tools underneath of the tools. So if you click and hold, look, there's a pencil tool. Okay, I don't use that much. I always use the brush tool. If you click and hold under this marquee, there is an ellipse tool. That's kind of cool, because you can grab that and you can make, if you hit shift, you can click and drag a perfect circle. If you freehand it, you can make a perfect circle maybe, but you don't know if it's a perfect circle. You can guess, but you can make wonderful ellipses, you know. So, and you can paint inside those. Okay, So here I am painting inside of that ellipse. Now that's going to have, I think that's going to have a hard edge. Yeah, it does. If you want a soft edge, you can come over here and change this number. Let's change it to a 6 and then paint in here. And I think that's not going to work because I got to do it first. Yeah, so let me change that number to a 6 on the feather. Again, we're selected right here on this ellipse tool. I've got it set to a feather there, and now if I paint it, it should be a blurry line. Yeah, there you go, a soft edge. Okay, I use that sometimes. And that's pretty much it for these tools over here. I don't use anything down here. And now we're going to move to probably one of the most important tools or palettes in this whole program, and that's the layers palette. You can't really use Photoshop if you don't learn to use the layers. Okay, so we're going to talk about layers. Remember, we're painting on glass. We have one layer out here. We have layer 0. Okay, now to get another layer, you can come up here and you can click New Layer, and that will give you a dialog box. It gives you a chance to name it. You could call this layer Dirt, or you could call it Bubblegum. So this is our bubblegum layer. Why? I don't know. Call it whatever you want. You can just number them. You can get another layer. An easier way to get a new layer is right here, and every time you click on this little button right here, it'll give you a new layer. Okay, so now we have a whole bunch of layers. Now these are not affecting our painting here because these layers are like pieces of glass that we've just laid over top of our painting. These are there. They are physically over top of this painting, which is on this bottom layer. Okay, and the layers that are on the bottom are in the background. The layers that are in the top are in the foreground, and I'll show you that. So if I click on this layer, whatever layer you click on that is highlighted with this blue color, that's the layer that you can paint on. If you're highlighted on layer 3 and you start painting right now, let's get a color. Let's get a different color. I'm going to start painting. Okay, now that purple paint now is only on the glass of layer 3, and you can see it right in this little window right here. I'll make it a little darker so you can see it. Okay, this is a little eyeball right here that indicates the layer visibility. So if I click that off, you can't see it. It's there, but you can't see it. Okay, there is no purple paint on this layer down here on layer 0. There's only purple paint on layer 3 because I'm turning it back on because I was clicked on that layer when I painted. Let's click on layer 1. And let's put a different color. Let's put some green on layer 1. Okay, and we'll just kind of do something like this. Turn up the opacity a little bit. Okay, now why is that paint being affected by this purple? And that's because the purple's on top. Remember, this is glass. This glass layer is on the very top. I just moved in a sense, moved layer 2 and 3 off to the side, painted a little on layer 1, and then layer 3 is back on top, and so you're looking through the purple paint at the green on layer 1. If I turn off layer 3 again, now you can see that purple paint really well on the glass. Now what do we have on layers bubblegum and layer 2? There's nothing. There's still just plain glass. Okay, so if you're ever on a layer, and let's say you get something like this. See that symbol right there? And you try to paint and you're getting that sound. I'll turn up my speaker a little bit. You know, the kind of you doing something wrong sound. That's because I'm trying to paint on layer 1, but it's turned off because I can't see it. Now if I come over here, I can paint on layer 1. Okay? Now we can change the order of these layers by simply clicking them and moving them, clicking and dragging. See, now layer 0 is on top of all the other layers except the purple. The purple's still on top, but it's turned off. If I turn the purple on, now you can see the purple on top of layer 0. If I move layer 0 up to the top, now you can't see the purple anymore. Okay? Because all this paint is on a piece of glass that's covering up layers 3 and 1. Let's turn off that layer, and now you're seeing into outer space because we've just painted on glass a little bit, and you're looking all the way through because we turned off this opaque layer down here. We'll move it down to the bottom again. And that's pretty much what I use for layers, but when I work I also use this lock. I don't use these controls right here. I might someday, but I use this lock, and so if I click on a layer and I have it selected with the blue and I lock it, it puts a little padlock over here. Now I also cannot paint on that layer. I get this little symbol here, and it will not let me paint because it's locked. That's really helpful. I use that on my sketch layer. I use that on my underpainting layer so that I can't mess up my sketch. I'll always have my sketch underneath, so I can always refer to it. I can always see my sketch through the painting. Okay, so let's actually do that right now. Let's scrap this one and get more of a real world situation. We'll get this painting out here. It's on the background layer. I don't want it to be, so I'm going to double click it. I'm going to click OK over here. And now I want this sketch to stay just like this as this sketch. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to lock that layer. Now nothing can mess with that layer. I'm going to get a new layer and I'm going to do a little underpainting. Okay. Now this sketch is actually in grayscale, so I don't have any color over here. So if I grab a color, it doesn't show up over here. I cannot paint in color, and that's because it's in grayscale. So you want to go to Image, Mode, and turn it to RGB color. It's asking me if I want to merge the layers, these two layers together. I don't. I want to keep my layers separate. And so now I'm going to paint on this layer. I'm going to get a nice warm color like a burnt sienna or something. And I'm just going to, remember I'm highlighted on this layer. I'm not on this layer right here. I'm on layer 1. And I'm going to turn down my flow and opacity a little bit. And I'm just going to lay some color out on this guy. Now, it's covering over my sketch, and the more I paint, the more I'm losing my sketch. One way to solve that is what I do with the underpainting layer is I make it a multiply layer. So I do use that. I use multiply a lot, and that's like it treats it like it's a magic marker going over that. Okay. So I know I'm moving fast, but you can watch this again and again, and you'll actually learn a lot from it, I think. So I'm going to get my zoom tool. I'm going to zoom in on this little guy. Remember, if I turn this layer off, I did not paint on my sketch. My sketch is still intact. Okay. Now I like my underpainting. I'm going to lock that layer. I'm going to get a new layer. And this layer right here is defaulted to normal. It will always paint in normal. There are a lot of different options that you have here, but I actually do not use anything but the normal mode and the multiply mode. Okay, so on this one I'm just going to use the normal mode, and I'm gonna since I'm selected on the right layer, I'm not selected on this layer. This layer's locked anyway, so I couldn't hurt it. But again, if I tried to paint, let's say I'm going to make this a blue bug, okay, and I get my blue color out here and I start wanting to paint, it won't let me. I need to be on the right layer, and I'm just going to start putting a little blue color in there. Turn down my paint a little bit, make him a little blue bug. Okay, and then maybe down here he's got some orange in him. And this is a real simplified way of how I paint in Photoshop. Of course, when we get to the main painting, I'm going to show you a lot more. If I don't want to ruin that layer, I can always lock it and get a new layer. And if I want to go lighter, I can put some highlights in, right? And if I want to put some highlights in on this eyeball, I can I'm just using the mouse here. I'm not even using my Wacom tablet because I'm just doing this short little painting, little highlights on the wings. And finally, if I don't want to take a chance on ruining what I put down, just get a new layer. Just throw a new layer on there. And finally, just kind of throw some highlights in there. Right? And there you go. So those are the tools explained. Those are pretty much what I use. I am going to show you how I use texture, and that's the other element, and that's basically it. So that's the end of this little tutorial. Again, if you have any problems that I'm not answering and you're getting stuck, there are a lot of forums. If you just Google your question, often you'll come up with the answer with just a little bit of reading. The neat thing is you're already on your computer, you're probably already online, so just Google it and see if anybody else has bumped into the same kind of a problem. And we'll see you on the next videos.